Welcome back to Watch the Bookerman and to episode number 40 of Paul Heyman's TNA 2010. We're coming off the back of a decent episode that came off the back of a underwhelming Hard Justice pay-per-view, and we had a couple of returns on the show as we began the road to Bound for Glory. AJ Styles was the major return on the show, while Abyss reintroduced his father James Mitchell to TNA. After the main event, we had Samoa Joe call out Kurt Angle, if not confirming, certainly indicating a likely main event of No Surrender would see those two old rivals go up against each other once again. I really like the look of this episode on paper. We are back in the Impact Zone as we always are, so let's hope that this can deliver as we get into the show. And we begin with a recap, looking back at the previous episode, the return of AJ Styles that I've mentioned, and the Kurt Angle Samoa Joe segment that ended the night. We then get the opening credits, the commentators introducing the show, and hammering home that we have a huge opening match as AJ Styles returns to TNA competition, the first match he's had since Slammiversary against Paul London, and it's a 12-minute match, pretty competitive. It had good wrestling and great heat, but I would say that 62 rating is a little bit underwhelming, as is AJ Styles' individual performance. He's going to need warming up a little bit more, I think, before he gets back into the really big matches, but it's great to have him back in the ring, and he wins there. It says with a Styles Clash. I am hoping to try and put over the phenomenal forearm as a finisher with his return to TNA, so maybe I would have rather it been that, but I'm not going to worry about what the text in the game says. And we see a bit of a mixed bag in terms of notes after the match, but following his return victory, a tired AJ Styles takes a microphone. He's heard that Desmond Wolfe was going to call him out tonight, but he's not interested in that. He wants one thing, and that is the World Heavyweight Championship. He never took his rematch, and he calls out Kurt Angle, but instead is confronted by Samoa Joe. Joe tells AJ that he may not be at the back of the line for title shots, but he's certainly behind Joe. AJ retorts that Joe is starting to sound more and more like Desmond Wolfe with each passing week. Samoa Joe tells him to take that back. He's pretty offended by the suggestion that he is anything like his rival Desmond Wolfe, but AJ Styles instead leaves and heads up the ramp. He wants nothing more to do with anybody really. He's not interested in Joe, he's not interested in Wolfe, he's back for Kurt Angle. As AJ Styles reaches the top of the ramp, however, he is jumped by Desmond Wolfe and laid out. Desmond tells Styles that he is the one who deserves a shot at the World Heavyweight Championship, not AJ Styles and not Samoa Joe either. A decent segment. I would have hoped this to be a little bit better, considering it's got probably 3 of the 4 top guys in the company, maybe, or certainly the guys who are active, but it did get the crowd hotter and advances a storyline which is going to be our main storyline over the next month. Mike Tenay is then shown in the home of Jazz. The commentator is introducing this sit-down interview. Jazz is with her husband Rodney Mack, who is tending to their twin daughters. During the interview, Jazz explains that her family are everything to her, and there is nothing that she wouldn't do for them. That is why she did what she did at Hard Justice. Mike Tenay nonetheless asks about the suggestions that she put her children in danger at the pay-per-view in order to secure the victory, and at this point Jazz suggests that Mike is upsetting her babies and Rodney takes them out of the room. This was clearly a distraction technique from Jazz, who didn't really want to answer that question. Jazz then gets stern with Tenay and says that he needs to realise that not everybody has had a cushy job for the last 8 years. He's sat on his ass behind a desk and collected a paycheck since the day TNA began. But things haven't been so easy for her, and they haven't been so easy for her husband. She was calling TNA, desperate to get her foot in the door. She was willing to do anything to get a shot in TNA, and she got nothing. Jazz happens to know, for all those years, he's had quite a lot of sway in TNA, so he has some nerve questioning her and her choices. She says that she did what she needed to in order to get here, and now she is working to keep her spot in TNA by any means necessary. She then suggests that the interview is over and tells Mike Tenay to leave. Rodney Mack is then pretty rough with Mike Tenay as he shows him to the door and out of their home. We then go into a decent second match on the night, Tara defeating Mischief in 10 minutes 24 with a Widow's Peak. It's a 62 rating, and I did actually put in the Road Agent notes that Alyssa Flash tries to distract Tara during the match towards the finish, but Tara's able to knock her off the apron and then get the better of Mischief. So Tara coming out of this looking quite strong. A good match overall, and two impressive individual performances means that I'm pretty happy with that. And having got a measure of revenge for the attack last week, Tara takes a microphone and says that she is done with the new age. Jimmy Jacobs leads the Knockouts Tag Team Champions away from the ring as Tara turns her attention once again to Jazz, challenging her to a match next week. So we have seen better from Tara in the past in terms of promo. She was very poor when trying to improvise the dialogue, but considering the segments in the storyline so far that have involved Jazz, this isn't too bad and will probably do the storyline good in terms of the heat overall. We then go to the back where Jeremy Borash approaches Jay Lethal, who is outside the door of Larry Sweeney's private lounge. JB wants to know what Lethal is looking to achieve here, considering he could be preparing for his and Eric Young's match with Rob Terrier and Sean Bashir later in the evening. Lethal ignores JB's question, instead continuing to bang on the door of the private lounge. He's telling them to open up. He wants to speak with Austin Creed. Lethal still doesn't get an answer and eventually he does give up. Lethal tells JB that he wants to speak to Austin Creed privately. He wants to know what all this is all about, but he's more than happy to call him out in the middle of the ring in front of all the fans in the Impact Zone after tonight's match, and that is a really encouraging rating for a Jay Lethal promo. I've been trying to push him, but we've not really seen the results in terms of segment and match ratings, so his improvising in this segment, adding heat to the storyline, and a 66 is really good and does, I hope at least, show that we are making some progress with Jay Lethal. Cutting elsewhere, Lauren Brooke is seen in the locker room with the Motor City Machine Guns as she asks them about tonight's main event. Amazing Red and Hernandez, Bad Influence, Generation Me, and Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team. It's Kazarian and Daniels of Bad Influence, to be specific. They will face off in an elimination tag team match, which is expected to go some way to determining the next number one contenders to the World Tag Team Championships, although it's not an official stipulation, it's not officially a number one contenders match. Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin are looking forward to the contest and see it as a great opportunity to scout any potential opponents for No Surrender. Losing heat to the storyline again. Motor City Machine Guns aren't great promos from what I've discovered over this 8 months, but as champions it is necessary that they do speak quite regularly, and I'm hoping that the storyline can gain some heat back with the rating of our main event, putting a little bit of faith, I suppose, into the tag team division, and hopefully those 4 teams that I mentioned can pull something out of the bag and make sure that this is a good episode of Impact. We then go into the third match of the evening, a match that had good heat and decent wrestling, and it was actually booked as a wild brawl. I wanted these two to go out for just under 10 minutes, as it says there, and have a pretty intense brawl between them. Of course, Matt Morgan using his strength and size, Homicide using the scrappy brawling approach. He's a very well-rounded wrestler, but there's obviously that grit to his character. The finish, however, is pretty inconclusive as Morgan sets up Homicide for a carbon footprint against the ring post on the outside. This is the same spot that took Amazing Red out for almost 2 months, so the referee actually leaves the ring, comes between the two of them, and he just calls the match off. He doesn't want to see Matt Morgan take it to that extreme again, and he calls for the bell just so that he can get like some security out and ensure that Matt Morgan can't do this. There was a storyline around concussions in TNA around the time. We don't want to lean into that too much, but obviously the implication here is the damage that Matt Morgan could do to Homicide is so serious that the referee has had to step in. We then get what is supposed to be Amazing Red and Hernandez coming down. I've only put Hernandez on screen by mistake really, but those two run down seconds after the bell is rung. Of course, the match is over, but Matt Morgan could well have still wanted to make his mark by hitting that carbon footprint to Homicide. He doesn't get the chance to do that because he realises that the numbers are against him. Amazing Red and Hernandez should be currently preparing for the main event, but instead they've had to come out and try and help out Homicide. Matt Morgan does back up the ramp then, but he has a smirk on his face. While he didn't get to rush the skull of Homicide, he knows full well that he has got under the skin of the 3-minute ringside. That is the end of the first hour of Impact. The future face turn for Homicide once again being hinted at during this segment. The definitive moment is coming very, very soon, but unfortunately it does lose heat to their storyline with this segment. We return to the second hour of Impact with what I'm pretty sure is our best segment rating yet. By the amount that I'm surprised to see that number on the screen, I'm almost certain that I've not had it in TEW 2020 to be fair, but definitely not in this game. And it's a fairly straightforward segment that gets the rating, so maybe a sign that these segments with 5 or 6 people aren't always the best way to go, and this is just a straightforward Kurt Angle promo. He makes his entrance and directs attention to the big screen. We see on there footage from last week when Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe went nose to nose at the end of the show, and Kurt Angle made it clear that he wanted to face Samoa Joe. The World Heavyweight Champion says that in that moment he was reminded of the reasons he came to TNA, and Samoa Joe was one of those reasons. He has a simple message for the Samoan submission machine tonight. He accepts his challenge for no surrender. Kurt will bring the title, and Samoa Joe will have to bring everything that he's got. Bound for Glory is less than 2 months away, and he wants to get in the mood for the biggest show of the year by facing one of the toughest competitors that he has ever faced inside a TNA ring. So like I say, it was just 6 minutes, Kurt Angle improvising, looking good, a fantastic segment that somehow even the commentary lifted. Normally that's a negative of the big segments and big matches, so everything going in our favour tonight, and it's going to do fantastic things for the main event storyline. Before the 4th match of the evening, the commentators discussed the confrontation between Awesome Kong and Sara Del Rey from last week, with the relative newcomer looking to step up to the Knockouts champion. Footage is played from the segment before the commentators talk about somebody who might have something to say about that, Madison Rayne, who is getting a little bit overlooked in these situations with the presumption almost that Awesome Kong and Sara Del Rey are going to clash at some point. Madison Rayne will face Hamada up next, who was the woman who uncovered what appeared to be a plot between Madison Rayne and Earl Hebner at Hard Justice. Nothing came of the investigation that followed, but it was certainly suspicious to see her coming out of the referee's office. Again, there's no hard evidence, so no further action has been taken, but obviously there's going to be a heat between the two of them, and Madison Rayne, in a match that had decent reaction from the crowd but subpar wrestling, the former champion defeats Hamada in 7 minutes and 13, says using a foreign object. I was thinking either pulling on the tights, using the ropes for leverage, that kind of thing. A good performance from Madison Rayne and a pretty good match actually, happy with that. Following the questionable victory though, Madison Rayne is confronted by the Knockouts champion Awesome Kong. She wants absolutely nothing to do with her, so Madison Rayne leaves the ring and runs to the top of the ramp as quickly as she can. As much as she wants that title back, she is absolutely terrified of Awesome Kong, and given what happened at the pay-per-view, she has good reason to be. She then looks relieved when she reaches the top of the ramp, before Awesome Kong points behind her. Madison looks and sees the No Surrender promotion on the display behind her. In 17 days' time, that pay-per-view will take place, and the commentators confirmed to us that whether she likes it or not, at that pay-per-view, Madison Rayne will face the current champion in her rematch for the Knockouts title. Madison Rayne's saying things, I didn't specifically say what she's saying, but just her general reactions, unscripted, and that's paid off because she did a good job while improvising. Just wanted to give her the chance to put over her acting ability and the fact that she can really sell this fear of Awesome Kong, which is carrying the storyline. Heading then to a satellite link-up, Mr. Anderson is sat at home. He's in his casual gear, of course, and he speaks about what happened on last week's show, the attack on Jay Lethal. Anderson says that the boss wanted the asshole. He tried to bring this side of Anderson to the fore, but then Paul Heyman suggested that it's a good idea if Anderson stayed at home to cool down this week, emotions still running high. If Mr. Anderson didn't know any better, he'd think that Heyman was trying to protect his double champion because he knows if he gets him again, Anderson will take that championship. But Anderson is absolutely fine with being at home, especially when he's earning more money not to work than everybody in the Impact Zone put together earns in a year. Probably a slight exaggeration there, but Anderson says that he signed a 2-year contract with TNA in January 2010, and that was guaranteed money. He's happy to bide his time and collect his paycheck. Anderson then says that they had the cheek to ask him to promote tonight's match featuring Big Rob Terry and Sean Bashir, but after the job they did for him at Hard Justice, he doesn't give a damn what happens to them when they face Eric Young and Jay Lethal. So Anderson doing a masterful job of improvising, using his catchphrase and advancing his storyline, and hopefully we'll see that character develop over the weeks, because he did need a little bit of a reset, and this is the start of that. Anderson is definitely somebody who I've earmarked that I simply have to do better with going forward. Hopefully as soon as possible we can get Mr. Anderson back on the right track. As for his associates, Big Rob Terry and Sean Bashir, almost ironically named the Elite at this point, because they are convincingly and decisively defeated by Eric Young and Jay Lethal. It's good for Eric Young to be on the winning side there, but it is Jay Lethal who picks up the victory with a lethal combination to Sean Bashir. Okay performances from the two guys losing, but Eric Young doing really well, Jay Lethal with a solid performance. Happy with that overall, although it is only a 53 rated match, but given it was pretty much a glorified squash match, we can certainly forgive that. Jay Lethal and Eric Young are then celebrating their victory in the ring when Larry Sweeney appears on the screen. He is of course flanked by Austin Creed and Kazuchika Okada. He speaks from his private lounge and Eric Young leaves the ring. He's happy to sort of not take part of this. He knows this is between Larry and Jay Lethal and of course the guys who Larry signed. But, and this is something I actually should have put over during the match, because it was confirmed on commentary during that previous contest that Jay Lethal, who has been able to defend one championship on the show before the pay-per-view and then one championship on the pay-per-view, will now have to defend both titles at any pay-per-view that he's on going forward. Of course, he could lose one or both of those championships at No Surrender, which would make that moot going forward, but the idea is that as long as he is a double champion, they gave him 2 months of a grace period, but now the pressure is on even more, because Jay Lethal will have to defend both of those titles on pay-per-view for as long as he holds them, and that gave Larry Sweeney an idea. Since Okada has already taken an interest in the X Division Championship, he thinks that the Global Championship would suit his newest signee, Austin Creed. Jay Lethal obviously wants to get his hands on the two guys, so how about he accepts a challenge to face both members of Larry Sweeney's agency at No Surrender. It's clear that the hustler, the wheeler dealer that Larry Sweeney is, he's trying to get in on some championship action when maybe those two guys haven't won enough matches, certainly not on Impact, to be in the conversations. But Larry Sweeney, he made that match at Slammiversary for the two championships. He almost feels that he's the one who made Jay Lethal a star. Jay Lethal tries to respond, but Sweeney says that they aren't leaving this locked lounge all night, and they don't want to listen to what Jay Lethal has to say. They're having too good of a time. Larry adds that he knows that everybody could sit here and listen to him talk all night, but he's got a phone call to make, and he wants Jay Lethal to think about that suggestion that he just made. We then return from the break. That was the 90-minute point of the show, and after the break the commentators introduce footage. Eric Young was dragged out from the back, evidently a victim of an attack from the Monster Abyss. Almost instantly after he'd made it backstage, Jay Lethal ran out of the ring and up the ramp to check on his friend, but was also taken down by Abyss, who hit him with a vicious chokeslam on the ramp. So Jay Lethal and Eric Young both seriously hurt here. Coming just 1 week after that attack, we see that there's a little bit of concern about Jay Lethal, medical personnel coming out, and they also take care of Eric Young, of course. The commentators point out that it's been a rough couple of weeks for the two men in question, specifically Jay Lethal, and it could be a case that his run as double champion is finally catching up with Jay Lethal. That intensity, you can't keep that up for too long, and the fact now that he'll have to defend both championships on any pay-per-view where he is still double champion, will he be able to hold that pressure? Coming back live as it were, Abyss is now shown in the ring with a microphone, and he tells fans that he warned them that the real monster was coming, but nobody listened. James Mitchell then comes out from the back, cutting a promo about reconnecting with his son over the course of the last 12 months. He points out the changes in Abyss since the beginning of the year and says he has been the invisible hand shaping his every move. Mitchell says that he didn't end things on the best of terms with Abyss during his last run in TNA, but they are bonded by the blood that is passing through their veins. Abyss is his spawn, and while Mitchell knew that Abyss would struggle to trust him again and that it wouldn't be easy to accept his father back into his life, James was always there for him. At the lowest point, when he'd lost the Global Championship and he was suspended, nobody else reached out to Abyss, but his father was there for him. Before the match with Jeff Hardy, Abyss finally opened up. He knew that he was ready to be guided once again. Throughout 2010, Abyss has been dangerous yet unrefined. With his father back by his side, Abyss will become the unstoppable monster that he was once more. So James Mitchell is somebody who, like Paul Heyman, you don't really script his segments, so he would of course put that kind of stuff into his own words and do an excellent job. I'm such a big fan of James Mitchell. I think he's really great in the character that he plays, and did so much for Abyss's character for so many years that I wanted to bring him back. And it's only a 55 rating, so actually Abyss probably would have done better cutting the promo himself, but I'm not going to let the ratings in the game detract from the story that I want to tell with Abyss. And I think bringing James Mitchell back into the fold makes him, to me at least, more interesting than he has been for a very long time. Cutting to the back, Maria is then shown leaving the doctor's office. Having been inside to check on the condition of her boyfriend Jay Lethal, Maria looks stressed and concerned as Lauren Brooke looks for an update on the X Division and Global Champion. She doesn't really want to answer that. Maria's looking a little bit shaken up about what's happened. Instead, the beautiful people walk onto the scene and they have a proposal for Maria. They bully Lauren Brooke, tell her to get out of the way because they want to help her take Jay's condition off her mind, and they assure her that they're the best people in TNA to do that. Maria looks a little bit lost. Obviously, like we say, she's caught up in worrying about Jay Lethal and gets swept up in the beautiful people's rhetoric. The three women then leave together. No real indication of what's going on there, but beautiful people taking advantage of a bewildered Maria Kanellis, and we'll see what happens. It's followed up an explosion, which I will go through after the show. Maria, unfortunately, that's my fault. She struggled because other people weren't following her script, so I've scripted one of them and not scripted the other two, which is a silly mistake to make, but I don't think it's affected the segment too much that I'm going to worry about it. Prior to the main event, Mauro Nawal and Taz promote this week's explosion with confirmation that Mick Foley and Roderick Strong will go face to face for Strong's final answer regarding him potentially joining the New Age. Wildly considered to be a long shot, Mauro Nawal says that there has been some suggestion this week that Roderick Strong will set out a number of conditions to Mick Foley, and if the New Age agree to meet those demands, he'll join the group. So previously it seemed like a complete dead end, a lost cause, that he was looking to do everything on his own and he wasn't interested in signing up with any group or any team. But it does look like they've ground him down at least a little bit, and again, we'll see what becomes of that on Explosion. We then go into the main event match, which is the 4-way elimination match. Amazing Red and Hernandez, Generation Me, Kazarian and Daniels versus Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team. It goes 14 minutes and 13 and is a 71 rating. There's a mixed bag of performances in there, but all pretty much where I'd expect them. Generation Me are out first, eliminated by Kazarian and Daniels, who do kind of steal the fall from Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team, but it doesn't really matter because it's an elimination match. They do then happen to get a second elimination in the match by taking out their rivals Amazing Red and Hernandez, so it's a good night for Kazarian and Daniels, looking strong as a tag team. But ultimately, Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team pick up the victory in 14 minutes and 13 seconds. So Kazarian and Daniels getting the other two pinfalls. They would have won if this was a 1-fall to a finish match, but with the elimination stipulation, Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team, Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin, pick up a victory and celebrate. Their fantastic start to their TNA career continues. A hard-fought victory. Impact ends, and I think overall this has been a pretty straightforward show. Often you'll have a post-match segment that's either a promo or a brawl or an attack. Tonight it's just simply about spotlighting Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas. The commentators talking about the impression they've made since joining TNA, and it appears that they are all but confirmed as Motor City Machine Gun's first challengers for the World Tag Team Championships. We sign off on the show. Kurt Angle versus Samoa Joe, already confirmed. Awesome Kong v Madison Rayne also set for No Surrender, and it looks likely that this match, Motor City Machine Guns v Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team, will also take place on that pay-per-view, the last one before Bound for Glory, so a huge amount riding on that upcoming pay-per-view. It's a 79, which I'm pretty happy with, more or less where I expected. That Kurt Angle segment obviously doing a massive favour to the show, but a solid main event, and actually, I mean, when you look at that show, there's a decent segment early on, there's a few pretty good matches, but head and shoulders above everything else is that Kurt Angle promo. Not only is he incredible in the ring, he also happens to cut the best promos in the company, so that's why he is, and how I booked him, as the top dog in TNA. And I will go through now Explosion, underwhelming apparently, Brian Kendrick defeating Douglas Williams in the opener, a post-Impact promo from Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team talking about their win, which was cut off by Beer Money, just continuing the underlying tension between them. Kiyoshi picks up a much-needed victory before we have a Beautiful People talk show debut. They have Maria on the show. That's what the proposal was, for her to be their first guest. They do get a little bit too personal with the relationship questions and want to know about Jay Lethal in a more intimate way. Maria doesn't like this and ends up storming off the set. Austin Creed and Kazuchika Okada then make their debut as a tag team, defeating Jesse Neal and Rhino, after which Larry Sweeney reveals the deal that he's happened to get together. Creed and Okada will face Jay Lethal and Eric Young on Impact, and if his team wins, both men will get those shots that he proposed on Impact at No Surrender, so a lot riding on that match. If Larry Sweeney's guys win, Austin Creed will get a global championship match at No Surrender, and Okada will get the X Division championship match. We then get a video package looking at Sarah Del Rey's impressive run with the company before she defeats ODB in the main event. She again using a pinfall, showing that she isn't just a submission specialist, she can also win by other ways. We then get that Roderick Strong segment, and he lays out his demands. Number one, if he joins the group, they have to guarantee him a match at Bound for Glory. Number two, he says that he only joins the group until Bound for Glory, and if he either doesn't have a match or if he's unhappy with how the month has gone, then he is free to leave. So it's a trial period in the way. Jimmy Jacobs likes this, Mick Foley likes this, they're nodding. On this one more thing, he faces Jimmy Jacobs in a one-on-one match, and if he wants him in the New Age, Jimmy Jacobs has to beat him. Foley looks shocked by this, but turns to Jacobs, who continues to nod. The agreement is reached. They'll face off on the Impact before No Surrender, Roderick Strong versus Jimmy Jacobs, and if Jimmy Jacobs wins, Roderick Strong will be forced to join the New Age. And with Explosion ending with a segment involving Mick Foley, it does actually bring me on to something that isn't really good news. To a degree, I'm not really upset about it, but considering he's involved in the storyline with the New Age at the minute and how much of a positive effect he's had on their matches and angles, Mick Foley signing with WWE wasn't something that I needed. His contract came up in between the last two shows, and I did actually offer him a 3-month deal on a paper appearance. He was on $93,000 with TNA, so we've been paying a hell of a lot of money considering we're not actually making a profit in these first 8 months. Getting that much off the wage bill probably is a good thing, and there was no way we could match WWE's offer of an 18-month contract on that much money. So it's a big departure to end the episode with, but hopefully you've enjoyed the show that preceded it. I was really happy with that episode. I'm glad to see Explosion meaning a little bit more, so that I actually feel the need to share what happened on that show. For instance, we will recap the Jimmy Jacobs, Mick Foley, Roderick Strong segment on the next episode, but it's good, I think, that Explosion is now getting important segments. That is the end of the episode. Thank you for watching. 40 episodes is another decent little milestone. Looking forward to getting to 50. I think Bound for Glory is episode 48, so some big shows coming up. Again, yeah, thanks for watching, and hopefully you'll be back for the next episode.